This week on Behind the Pulpit. Happy New Year, everyone. It is 2024, and we are back with the first Behind the Pulpit episode of the new year. We kick off the show today with Pastor Bob and Pastor Dave talking about some interesting Christmas gifts.
So Christmas presents, Pastor Dave.
I don't feel safe.
In an action-packed episode of Behind the Pulpit, we continue on by answering one of your questions, making some predictions about 2024, and doing something new where we recommend a few books.
You know how like elephant eat? You know how like whales eat little fish. That's how Bob consumes books. It's like, this isn't enough for me. I need more books.
And we'll wrap it all up with discussing this week's past sermon and the Theology Sprint.
I'm going to have to go up and check on Pastor Bob in his office in case he's just up there playing with his lightsaber instead of working today.
As always, wherever you may be watching or listening to this today, we hope you're having a wonderful day. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's edition of Behind the Pulpit.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the first Behind the Pulpit of the year 2024. Oh my goodness. Dun, dun, dun. We're so glad that you're joining us today. My name's Bob. I'm joined here by my colleague.
I'm Dave. I'm glad to be with you in this new year. I'm trying to get used to writing the name 2024 on all my checks, which I don't write checks. But
every single year when I got to do a new year in whatever. But it's hard to believe. I was born way back when, and the year 2024, I felt like we were going to have flying cars. You remember that? You had Back to the Future, 1985. They were predicting flying
false
cars
advertising
in 2015, and here we are in 2024, and the cars are still not flying yet.
Right. In fact, 30 years from Back to the Future, that was 1985.
I'm really disappointed.
We should have had flying cars like 6 years ago, according to Doc Brown.
That's true.
And Michael J. Fox.
That's right. Well, yeah.
Here we are. We're still driving on the tar.
Well, I will say, though, Minority Report, another movie, Tom Cruise movie, they were predicting there's going to be like highways in the sky by like 2050, right? So we got 25 years to build highways like over the city.
All right.
Right? We'll see if that happens.
That seems like a good project.
Okay.
Sounds like a lot of concrete.
All right. It does. Tim, how is your Christmas? How is your New Year's? How you doing back there?
Doing well. I shout out to all of the young adults going to the Passion Conference.
That's right. Tim was up bright and early today, taking them.
Drove them to the airport. Yeah, Christmas was good. Hung out with family. Hung out with my fiance for both Christmas and New Year's. So we were, it was a good time. Nice, relaxing, nothing crazy. So praise God.
All right, awesome. So that
in case you didn't catch that, there's a fiance, and that means 2024 is a pretty big year for
2024 is the year for
producer.
Tim. That's right. It is the year.
It is the year
of something. What's the date? Oh, you know what?
It's actually May the 4th. So
this is going to work really well because I want to talk about Christmas presents.
Gosh.
May the 4th be with you. So Christmas presents, Pastor Dave.
I don't feel safe.
What's going on here? So we want to talk a little bit about what we got for Christmas. My wife, I asked her for about
watch where you're swinging that thing.
Three or 4 years for these lightsabers I kept seeing. She finally got them for me this year. Thank you very much. And Pastor Dave, you know what? There was two. So I got one for you as well.
Right. If you can't beat them, join them.
You can change colors.
There we go.
So you know what? I was reading. I was reading that these colors actually have like different meanings in the Star Wars universe.
All right.
So the white one, this is like Ahsoka Tano, the white one. And then, the yellow one was that guy, Balin's, if you don't watch the show.
Rey was yellow too, right?
She was yellow. This was like kind of it was in terms of your allegiance and stuff to the Force. Anyway, I'm kind of geeking out here, but.
You really are.
Boom. So anyway, Star Wars, this is going to make its way into a sermon somewhere.
Bob chopped my arm off yesterday.
It makes like a noise when you swing it?
Yeah, and when you hit...
Oh, my gosh. Help us, Pastor Bob. You're our only hope.
There you go. Oh, that's pretty cool.
All right, very good.
And you can turn them off. Oh, there's Mace Windu. All right, turn them off. All right, we're done. So anyway, Star Wars. This is what I got for Christmas. I got some lightsabers. I also
we're gonna need to get some Jedi training in 2024.
Okay, so I also was gifted some actual AirPods for Christmas. My sister got these for me. Thank you very much.
It's good to know you actually have a useful gift.
I do. So what this? What, you saying this isn't useful?
Not just toys.
I got BB-8 in my office. I'll have the lightsabers now. But I've often gone with like the more economical headphones. I don't spend much more than $40, so this was nice. I'm getting used to these. So that was another gift I got. What'd you get for Christmas?
Well, my favorite gift came from my dear wife. She got us tickets to see one of our favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze, who's coming to New Jersey here at the end of the month, and we're looking forward to that show together in the Newark area. I think it's called the Prudential Center.
He's going to be at the Rock.
Not at the Rock. Is it called the Rock?
That's what us Devils fans call it.
That's okay. So maybe
New Jersey Devils.
I just
Easy, you heathen over there, the Devils.
Well, it's going to be a great show, and so thank you, Julie, for that special gift. I like when people give me like an experience as a gift, something to look forward to, and so that should be a good one.
Yeah.
So,
well, speaking of that, so those were the gifts that were given. How about what were some gifts that you gave?
all right.
Did you give a gift? Did you give a gift to your wife as well as receiving one from her?
I did. So one of the things that she appreciates is jewelry, and her birthstone is in June. So pearl is her stone.
Ooh,
okay. And so she got a nice pearl necklace from her husband, and so she's going to be sporting that. And
sporting.
Yeah. And shout out to my son-in-law, Tim. Favorite gift that we got to give together was an Arsenal's jersey. He's a huge soccer fan.
Okay.
So he's like into the Premier League in England.
Okay.
And
so you think soccer's a real sport?
Tim, I'm sorry that comment was just made. But I'll try
to
take him into an education here. But
football.
Yeah. So that was fun to see him open that jersey, and I've been sort of following the Arsenals too alongside of.
Well, I guess great minds think alike, because for my wife this year I got her a new wedding band, because this is our 10th anniversary is coming up in June in about 6 months.
Is it really
10
years?
I watched your wedding on a live stream.
That's
10 years ago.
Right, 10 years ago,
crazy.
Man.
It's a big
crazy.
year for you guys.
Yep, it's a big year. But the original ring, we can't resize it anymore, so I got our new one to wear, and then we might be getting another ring, like a 10-year ring. We'll see what happens. But she was very appreciative of that. So, and I got her an experience. I got her a very relaxing massage experience. So those are my gifts.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
wasn't quite as good as your flower. Your light up flower you said you got, but
yeah. So. This was more of a fun gift. She got an enchanted rose that lights up, which was fun to give her that.
Beauty and the Beast style.
So 10 years is the tin or aluminum anniversary. So you guys have made it up to a metallic substance for your. You know how each anniversary
like
has
we're supposed to give each other tin?
Like 25 years is
aluminum
golden.
Foil?
You've heard of that, right? No, silver. I'm sorry, 25 years is silver.
Oh, okay. And then 50 is gold?
50 is gold.
Okay.
And then so like 1 year I think is paper, so they keep getting increase in value over the years. So 10, you made it up to aluminum, which is okay. You can give each other.
Is there like a standard
foil
gift?
Or something?
I didn't know this. This is new. I'm gonna go home and share that with her now.
You got to get ready. So Amanda, that goes for you too. Find something that's aluminum for Pastor Bob.
All right,
some Reynolds wrap or something.
Tim, what about you? What was your gifts you got for Christmas?
I also got a pair of AirPods.
All right, AirPod. Don't steal mine.
Got some clothes that I needed, so I actually enjoy getting clothes on Christmas.
I usually that's like the 1 year of time of the year that I buy clothes.
Nice.
And in terms of the giving, I got my fiance a nice pair of sunglasses.
All right. Okay.
And so my brother and I recently have been getting into playing darts, and so I have a really nice set of tungsten darts, and I got one.
Tungsten darts.
I got a set for my brother as well, so we've been.
Is your wedding ring going to be tungsten too?
No, because I'm afraid if my finger swells up, I won't be able to get it off. So I think I'm going to try to stay away from the tungsten.
Yeah, and also if you hit it wrong, you can crack it. Mine is titanium, so that's why we didn't have enough money to go gold back in the day, so I went with one of the
How do you
metals.
guys protect the wall around your dartboard? Do you have some kind of like cork board or something that's mounted on?
We have our dartboard is in a cabinet
Right.
And we're not to toot our own horn or anything, but we don't hit the wall very often.
Okay.
We're not as precise as some of the pros out there, but we hit the board.
Awesome job. All right, well, you have to show me some of your tricks.
Alrighty, awesome.
Play some darts on lunch break one time.
So, hey, if you're watching this later on, let us know in the comment section your favorite gift. We'd love to hear from you. All right, let's move on to the announcements of what's going on within the church. Do that pretty quickly. So we're now in 2024. Two big things are coming up this month. We want to remind you about January 12th is going to be the night of revival, and we do want to start the year with Jesus because we need him. So invite some friends, come out, 7 p.m. January 12th. There's going to be some awesome worship. I hear there's going to be some rather winsome MCs that are going to lead that event. Mm-hmm. And then Noah Graves is going to bring the message on that night, so you'll want to come out and check that out.
Also, it's an important time of prayer, so if you'd like to be praying for it, and if you're interested in praying during the event, we're looking for some prayer partners, and we'd love to have you serve in that way.
More people praying this year.
But either way, mark your calendar. Hope you'll join us Friday, January 12th.
Okay. And then secondly, coming up later in the month, we're having our recap of the Child Discipleship Forum. So this is going to be a training event. If you're a parent, if you're a volunteer, you got kids, they're going to curate the best content from the conference that they went to and have an event on Saturday, January 27th. So if you're interested in that, contact Rachel or Lenore. They would love to tell you more about how you can be involved with that. So those are the two main things that are coming up. Lots of other stuff's going to be happening this year. Easter's coming early, so be on the lookout for
Easter is
that.
In March. It is
the end of March.
Not too
I don't even know
far
what
away.
to do. I feel like it's like next week. It's so early this year.
It is one of those. It's a very short season of ordinary time, they call it. So after we celebrate
ordinary time,
yeah. As opposed to like Advent or Lent.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you have like Christmas, and then liturgically you have like the 12 days of Christmas. Then you have Epiphany, which is
Epiphany's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up
this week, right?
Right. And so then after that, they start ordinary time until you get to Ash Wednesday, which is coming up pretty quickly.
And then we have Lent, right?
Mid-February this year.
Yeah.
So here we are in ordinary time, and Easter's going to be upon us at the end of March this year.
That's true. You know what? I got for my devotions, I've been going through that Jonathan Gibson book, but he just came out with a new Advent one. Nice. So the Advent one goes right the beginning of Advent to Epiphany. So I actually knew that Epiphany was going to be January 6th.
Coming up, man. It's the celebration of the wise men and their giving of gifts and honoring the revealing.
Speaking of gifts,
Christ.
Would the wise men have brought? would they have given the
I don't think they would have given weapons, although they might have been carrying weapons to protect them along their journey.
True. That's true. All right. Okay, Pastor Dave, so now we're moving into the segment that we call In the News. All right, so we don't exactly have a news story today, but I thought it'd be fun since we're getting into the new year to do some 2024 predictions, things that you see that might be coming up down the pike, and talk a little bit about those. So I made a list.
All right.
I don't know if you want to opine on some of your thoughts.
I'm not a prophet or a son of a prophet, so I'm looking forward to hearing your predictions here, Pastor Bob.
So
Nostradamus, Pastor Bob is going to tell us what's going to happen in the future.
We are busily crafting an Underground Sessions newsletter that's going to be coming out next week. That's going to be highlighting the Christopher Yuan event, and I want to start like periodically writing these articles. So this is going to go on the pastor's blog and then be part of this newsletter that goes out. And this is my first draft at making some predictions for 2024. So these may or may not come to pass. Working title for the blog is this: 5 Trends to Watch in 2024. So I made 5 trends, and then I came up with 5 action steps. And you can critique them. Maybe we can come up with some new ones. But here was my first 2024 prediction. Politics will divide the church again. Dun, dun, dun. Unfortunately, there is a presidential election this year. And I don't know if you've been following the news, but it may be possible that the presidential candidates will not be on the ballot in all the states. 1 or 2 of them might be in jail by the time we get to November. So it's shaping up to be rather interesting year for that.
Yes, 2024 is going to be probably deeply polarizing, maybe even more polarizing than 2020.
So what's interesting to me about this, and this is why I think it's an interesting trend to watch, is that I think it's just a microcosm of what's going on largely in culture. That we are people. There's competing worldviews that are going on out there. People have kind of entrenched themselves in their views of things, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to have conversations with people that you disagree with. So
what I've noticed is there's people that are so divided over the events of 2020, not just including the presidential election, but all of the dividing issues around COVID, whether it's masks or vaccines or lockdowns or, the precautions. There's such deep division between both sides that it's almost like both sides have been waiting for an apology. And they're just waiting in pain. They're waiting hurt because of what they've experienced.
Yeah.
Waiting wounded, waiting angrily. And I don't know that apology is ever coming from either side, but we're just sitting here never having reconciled what divided us so deeply 4 years ago, and now we're about to go through it all again with like raw, open wounds.
Well, it almost seems like we've created this kind of incentivization for grievances within the culture too. So it's not just that; it's a lot of other things that we could talk about.
Incentivizing grievances. Now that's something.
Like it's like you have to just let me know. Like it's like that old Seinfeld thing. The Festivus. The airing of grievances.
I got some problems with you people.
That's kind of what it is, right?
There's a funny story.
The poll.
The
time for the airing of grievances and the feats of strength.
The feats of
strength.
Let me let you know how much stronger I am than you.
I forget what country it was. It might have been Chile. I think it was. It was like during what normally would have been the Festivus time. Apparently, a bunch of people in the town just all got boxing gloves. They went out into the town square and they just had it out and aired their grievances, and then that was it. They all shook hands and went back.
See,
inside.
that would be one thing, right? That forgiveness is still there. There can be like, let me tell you what's going on, let me confess, and then let's move on. But doesn't seem like we're able to do that. So I'd have a couple of questions with this. I'm wondering, and I've heard people talk about this. Is it possible for the country to come together because of where people are at in their thoughts on politics and the surrounding issues? And then it almost seems like that's also happening within the church. You were sending me this thread from one person that was seeing something one way, and then somebody else was responding from another way. It doesn't even seem like the church is coming together on some of these things. So anyway, we're going to see how 2024 is, but that is my prediction. I think that's a trend to watch, that politics is going to keep creeping in. It's going to become more acute this year because of the presidential election.
I would affirm that prediction to be accurate.
All right, number 2, there will be a continued attempt to delegitimize institutions. So I think...
What institutions are you referring to?
Well, I think a lot of institutions. I mean, right now, some of the cases that are coming up to the Supreme Court, the language people are using is trying to, well, if you make that decision, that's just because, so-and-so appointed you, whether that's the Supreme Court or lower courts, But I also think, like, the church is getting attacked. Like, the church is just, people are trying to delegitimize that because of all these mistakes that the church made. People are upset at them. So I think there's a lot of attacks on institutions when, in fact, we need to be building them up and building stronger institutions that are training people and discipling people as we go forward. So I think there's going to be a continued attack on institutions as we come in. Government, medical institutions, all of those things. People are saying they don't know what they're talking. They don't know what they're talking about, right? Or they're biased in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to continue in 2024, unfortunately. So.
Or corrupt.
Well, that's a way of delegitimizing. They're just corrupt. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
All right. Number 3, positively, I do think...
Thank goodness. Man,
because a lot of these things...
I was about to go back to bed and just wake up in 2025, man. Let's get some positives.
We'll see. 2025 might be the... I heard somebody describe 2023 was setting up 2024. Then you're going to have this... And then 2025 might be the result of what happens in 2024. Or you're dealing with the fallout from 2024.
Just a smoldering, like...
garbage
ash heap.
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah. All right. So another trend, two positive trends. Number 1, I think there's going to be a resurgence of family focus. So I think because of all these issues that are coming up within the culture, people are running, especially if you have kids, are running back to how can we build a stronger family to impact people that are around me, and that is the place where you're starting to find your identity. So I think there's going to be a family focus.
Hey, that's a great opportunity for us as a church.
Yep.
I mean, we value strong families. We want to build programs that are nurturing discipleship for kids, for teens. That's really one of our major emphases here at NBC to have a church that really serves the family and comes alongside of the family along the spiritual formation process of your kids.
Well,
so
my fourth prediction along with that is that I think there's going to be an intentional focus on discipleship. I think churches are saying, we need to train people. We need to get deeper in the Word. We need to be grounded in what we believe. And I think because of a lot of the stuff that's going on out there, there's going to be a resurgence and focus on intentional discipleship.
Great. As the person here who oversees the discipleship ministries, I'm excited about that. We have some great ideas, by the way, here at NBC for our adult ed programs, small groups, women's ministry, radical mentoring. We got some cool stuff that's going to fit right into Bob's prediction. So I'm just amening your
all right.
number
So we're going to
there.
see if that actually happens. Now, maybe we'll be part of making these predictions become a reality, but in the culture at large, I think that's going to be those are going to be some things. Number 5. We're going
to be part of making these predictions a reality.
We're going to be the trendsetters.
I just want you to hold that thought because there's
right.
a question later on in the program that's going to relate to that question. So just
right.
don't forget what Bob just said.
Hold on to it. There you go. Don't lose it.
Right.
Wrong camera. There we go. Okay, last prediction. Another negative one. Sorry. The sexuality battle will continue to come to the church. And I think we're starting to see that with different people that are making different moves on that. We're doing that underground session with Christopher Yuan, but he's on one side of kind of some of this larger discussion about sexuality. And I think that's just going to continue to intensify this year.
I mean, the Pope made a statement in December about how it's okay to bless same-sex couples in a way that's never been done before. It's not necessarily legitimizing gay marriage in the Catholic Church, but it is offering a step of blessing towards them. And like it or not, no matter what the Catholic Church says that meant, people have interpreted it in a certain way. In fact, you probably heard Chris Christie in the news saying that he's shifted on this issue, and he says even the church is moving on this issue. So that's the perception. So I totally agree that issue is going to come more and more to the church. I have a couple other predictions to add to your list.
Yeah,
now that you're talking.
Okay.
I didn't have my iPad and my pen ready, but I'm just thinking.
I'm throwing them out there. I got some action steps. Let's keep going with the predictions.
All right, so I got one positive, one negative. Which one do you want first? You want the good or the bad?
Let's do the negative, and then we'll end with the positive. You only have 2?
That's all I can think of right now. But I'm on the spot.
What's your negative?
My negative is probably for the first time in many years or decades, anti-Semitism will continue to be on the rise. We've seen that grow in the last couple of months because of the events of October 7th and the reactivity. There's been sort of a demonization of the Jews like we've seen in years past. Like a couple hundred years ago, there was anti-Semitism that was sometimes rooted in the church. I mean, they were thought of as the Christ killers. And so the Jews were like the problem. They were the ones that were sort of against the truth of Christianity. And then, during the rise of World War II and Hitler, the Jews were seen as those that were tainting the gene pool. They were seen as the ones that were holding humanity back from the naturalistic, materialistic framework of being the Superman. And now, what we've decided to do is make the Jews the new caricature, which is they're the ultimate expression of oppression, the ultimate expression of power. They're the ultimate enemy of critical race theory. They're the ones that are occupying. They're the ones that are going after the little guy. And we've made the Jews into our favorite enemy once again, just like we have in years past. They have a different reason to be our enemy now, but I think anti-Semitism is on the rise, and we need to stand with our brothers and sisters who are of Jewish ethnicity, because it's kind of dangerous and scary, the kind of things that are being said about the Jewish people right now. So that's my negative prediction.
But things that are being said and being tolerated,
which
is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So you want the positive?
Give me let's end on the positive right
positive
now, and then we'll talk about some action steps.
Okay. So on my sabbatical, I decided to have more distance from technology. And not sleep with my phone and have more time away from my phone.
I didn't have a technology prediction. I'll have to add that to the blog post.
My prediction is this year we are going to start realizing that distance from our devices is a good thing, and we're going to start being less easily accessible, and we're going to start leaving this thing behind more and more often, and we're going to start realizing this is good for our mental health, this is good for our soul, to create some boundaries around technology. I think that's going to be a good thing. I don't know if I'm right or not, but that's my prediction. I think more and more people are going to start to recognize
that's something we can strive
the margin.
For, right? Hey, we're gonna be trendsetters here, so let's start trend setting it.
Let's do it.
So if you want to get in touch with me, sorry. That's good. I'm gonna have to add a technology prediction to that blog post I'm doing later today.
So let us know what you think. Those are what we think is happening in the future. What do you think is going to happen
predictions?
in 2024?
Boom. There you go. All right, so let's talk about some action steps.
Not to mention
Pastor
the
Dave.
Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. That's like the main thing.
Is that a possibility? I'm not following.
Did anybody see what happened this weekend? The Cowboys are now in first place. They're leading the NFC East, and the Eagles lost. It was unbelievable.
Eagles fall.
Wow.
Now, I don't know about
I'm a little scared to drive to Philadelphia now because who knows what's
think
going
this
to
is
happen.
the Bob will like this. I do think this is the Niners year though.
All right.
Is it? All right. That's right. 49ers,
so.
Joe Montana forever, man. Back in the day. Steve Young.
That Cowboys game was a crazy ending. Weird win. I feel bad for the Lions fans out there. That was a strange situation. But we'll take the win.
All right. I got some action
How about
steps,
them
Pastor
Cowboys?
Dave. I'll give my action steps. Maybe that can for 2024. Maybe that can spur some thoughts on with you.
Action
All right.
steps.
First action step. These kind of go along with some of my predictions. So my first one is that if you are young and you're married and you're of childbearing years, or you're about to get married, when you get married, have babies and disciple them to love Jesus. One of the reasons I say this is because there's been some stuff in the news about the birth rate in the U.S. falling, and that's a big problem because if we don't have people that are having babies and people that are rising up and we have a new generation coming, well, I don't know who's going to pay my Social Security when I get old.
So this is really a selfish action step. Bob wants to make sure that he's taken care of here.
That, but also I think that, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently, as I'm getting a little bit older, who is going to remember me when I get older? Who's going to remember you? And the reality is most of us, nobody's going to remember us in 100 years. But the people that you're going to have the biggest impact on, if you're blessed to have them, are your children. They're the ones that are going to remember you years after you're gone. And so really focus on investing in your kids and having kids or adopting kids or whatever it is. And as you do that, as you train them to love Jesus, that's going to kind of turn the tide, culturally speaking.
Speaking of children, I see you brought your young
you
one
know
over
what?
there. Is that
Thank you for
is that
reminding
to inspire us to?
I forgot that I was going to pull him out as we were talking about the as we were talking about the lightsabers. Baby Yoda right here.
Who wouldn't want to have a cute little child like this?
Well, if the
child, is that what we refer to him as?
Originally as a child, but what
the child?
See, like he got this.
You have to train your children in the Jedi ways.
No, Yoda has the green. Where's the green? There we go, green.
Wait, are we referring to him as Yoda all of a sudden?
Baby Yoda.
Did I miss a Mandalorian?
His name is actually Grogu. If you haven't watched the show, there you go.
For a while, they were just calling him the child.
He was. So there you go.
The young one, the youngling.
All right.
So have children, give them Star Wars babies, and if you have kids, you can enjoy toys like this on Christmas.
That's right.
And it's like totally culturally acceptable.
My kids did want to have lightsaber fights with me on Christmas, so I'm going to have to bring them home, Pastor Dave. You can't keep that.
Oh.
All right. Number 2, action step, advocate for your convictions charitably, and don't always think you have to ride the middle. See, here's my thing. Like, I think people sometimes think the middle way is always the right way, and it might be, but I think there might be times that if you are convicted in thinking one way or the other, advocate for that, but do it charitably. And I think we need to learn how to do that better as we go into 2024, especially with whatever the issues are that are going to come up. So that's my action step. Number 3, build things. And this goes along with my institutional thing, that if institutions are being delegitimized, what we need to do is build things that are going to last. So continue to build the church, start a nonprofit, start a business, things that are making a positive impact on society. Build a family. Number 4, don't sacrifice theology for the practicality of mission. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing right now. It's like, well, I'm going to do whatever I can to reach that person over there or do that, but yet at the same time we're sacrificing good doctrine for the sake of doing that. So build into the doctrine first and then let your mission flow out of that. And then number 5, know your identity in the larger story. Know who you are in Christ, and then understand that if you read the Bible, we know how it ends, and we know that God has a purpose for each and every one of us, and rest in that and lean into that and know what your calling is. So those are my 5 action steps, Pastor Dave. Would you want to add a couple? Or you want to critique those?
That's a good list. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you.
All right. So maybe Tim can drop a slide later on so you can see those, or check out the blog post when I get it up later this week or next week. So those are some trends to watch in 2024 and some things to do about them. And
here we go.
That's all
Ready,
I got.
set, go. We're launching.
Buckle up. What will it be like this time next year? 2025, we're going to be getting ready for the Contend Conference this time next year. But we'll see how the year goes.
Elisa Childers.
Tim, do you have any predictions for 2024 before we leave this point?
Do I have any predictions for 2024?
Or do you have any problems with what I said?
I have no problems with what you said. I think all the things that you said are...
All right.
I do think that
maybe this time next year, Tim's getting married in May. Maybe this time next year we'll be expecting a little baby Tim.
Anyway, I think the Niners will beat the Ravens in the Super Bowl, and I think the Bruins are going to beat the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup.
All
and I don't know anything about basketball, so go Knicks.
There we go.
Go Knicks. Oh boy.
All right, so that's in the news. All right, so now, Pastor Dave, we have a new segment we want to start instituting on a regular basis, and that is recommendations. And today we're going to do some book recommendations for you. So since I talked about my predictions, I'm going to let you go first on the book recommendations.
Okay. So we want to just give you guys good things to read this year and just opportunities to dive into theologically rich material. You need a reading plan. You need some kind of way to connect together intellectually and grow and love God with all of your mind. And so from time to time, Pastor Bob and I want to make recommendations on books.
Why is it important to read? Can I grow my mind another way? What's your view on that?
There's a lot of different ways to learn. Different people learn different ways. Some are audio learners, some are video learners, some prefer to learn through reading. I do think there's got to be a place for reading. I think that there's a way that reading trains our minds to think critically. I think it quiets us down and causes us to be reflective. So I think you should make some time with some books.
Maybe you can't read like Pastor Dave, but you could read something.
Yeah.
Start with a book for the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you want me to name a book?
Name a book, man.
Okay.
Or you can pick one of the ones that I brought.
You got some great options there. I didn't bring any physical copies of any books that I'm reading right now.
I didn't prepare Pastor Dave well for our podcast
with me. I could have. I've got a bunch of books upstairs, but here's what I would recommend: find a Puritan author and dive into one Puritan work this year. So I'll just give you one recommendation. The one that I'm reading right now is by Puritan Richard Sibbes, and it's called The Bruised Reed. It's based on that one Bible verse that describes Jesus that way: a bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. And it talks about the understanding that we have of our sinful condition and the grace and mercy that our Savior has for us. You will not regret any time that you spend with any of the Puritan authors, but if you need a place to start, Richard Sibbes, The Bruised Reed.
Maybe we can put a link to where you can get it in the show notes below us.
Absolutely. So there's my book recommendation for this week.
So Richard Sibbes, Puritans. Hey, Puritans are great. I could give you a couple recommendations on that as well. But I'm going to go a little more modern. I'm going to recommend this book right here. It's a book called Plugged In by a guy named Daniel Strange. And Dave and I actually happened to see him speak at Westminster February? Is that when we saw him?
He was fantastic.
Yeah, he was wonderful. So he's got a few different books. I was going to recommend some other ones.
You said you didn't have any technology predictions or recommendations, but you do. This is very relevant.
Well,
to
this
that
could
topic.
be an action step. So what he's really good at is in the book, he talks about finding cultural touch points with people that aren't believers for the purpose of working in the gospel story. And so the subtext for this is connecting your faith with what you watch, read, and play. And then finding these, actually there's another book he has where he talks about these kind of 5 magnetic points that you can use to start faith conversations. So a couple ideas he has in here is like, if you want to do some evangelism this year, maybe have a movie night and then have some friends over and then talk about the spiritual themes that you see within the movie. And he's got a whole list of things that you can do on how to create the, how to identify the idols that are in people's hearts, how to pull Jesus into those cultural conversations. So it's a very thought-provoking, practical book. So this was the one I would recommend. Plugged In, and of course Tim Keller wrote the foreword, and he says there's really nothing else like this book. So there you go. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to read it, and it's actually kind of short. So that's my recommendation. Plugged In. Check this out this year. It's a nice, easy read, and he's really, really wonderful. And he's also British, so you can picture him reading the book to you in a British accent.
There you go. You'll love Daniel Strange. By the way, if you go to YouTube and just type in Daniel Strange, he's got some excellent material out there homiletically. He's got some good messages on Isaiah. He's a great speaker, great author, so check him out.
There you go. Thanks, Pastor Dave, for affirming my recommendation right there.
You're very, very well-read and... always good to hear Bob's recommendations. Although I really can't keep up with Bob's reading pace. He's kind of a monster. It's like...
Well, you know what? It's maybe to mention that. So I think...
You know how, like, elephant eat... I mean, you know how, like, whales eat little fish? That's how Bob consumes books. It's like, this isn't enough for me. I need more books.
Well, maybe at another future episode we can talk a little bit about how we go about reading and how you can maybe do that in a bite-sized way. Because I read, I also listen to books on audio. Like I try to, pick little chunks here and there.
Oh, so the AirPods are not just for entertainment on your Spotify?
I've listened to a couple books over the break too. A couple other ones I could recommend. But Dave told me I can only recommend one, so I just recommended one today. I'm not going to go into the rest of the predictions here.
You overwhelm us, Pastor Bob. We need like a little bit of recommendations, not your whole library.
That's my little bit of recommendations.
Have some self-control.
All right, good. I did. See, there you go. That was one of my goals this year.
There you go.
Okay, so last segment here, let's talk a little bit about theology and the sermon. Ken Huber preached yesterday, moving along with our Luke series. We actually are now in Act 2 of Luke. Tim did a great job with the promo video, the lead-in video for that. Thanks for doing that, Tim. What was the line that captivated Mark's heart in staff meeting yesterday?
From the manger to the ministry.
Woo! We move from the manger to the ministry. That's
real quick.
That could be a T-shirt right there.
It could be a T-shirt. We do have an audience question. Do we want to do that before we move into the sermon?
Ooh. Well, you know what? Let me recap the sermon, and then let's dive into that question.
Sounds good.
So, so Ken preached yesterday, Act 2. We were looking at Luke 3 to the beginning of chapter 4. So he covered a lot of different things right here, and he had some good so the main theme was road signs, if you missed that, and he gave us 3 road signs, looked at 3 kind of major sections of those of that passage of Luke. So yeah, I don't know. Should we do the question first and then do this?
Yeah, sure. We can.
All right, let's take the question.
Try to tackle it.
Let's take the question here.
All right.
Thanks for the reminder about that.
Of course. So we got a question submitted. Thank you to the person who submitted it.
Thank you, question submitter out there.
Today's question from the audience is, describe the balance between God's hand in our lives as well as the importance of man's choices. If it's all God, are we all just robots? And that was submitted by a friend of mine, so shout out to the streets.
Thank you.
To the streets. The last name is Street?
It says...
or is he just like a street baller?
Have you seen those things where they try to tell athletes to like put something into their press conference, like you fit this phrase in? It's a thing sometimes.
And that's what's called the street?
No. It's the person who I asked to ask a question, or asked their question, said, say shout out to the streets after. So I did. So
okay.
Shout out to them.
Is that a Gen Z thing? I was watching a money podcast the other day, and this guy was talking about his portfolio. he said, or as Gen Z would say, this is what's in my bag. Is that a thing?
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, and that can have multiple meanings, I assume. All right, anyway, this question is about free will. How do you balance God's sovereignty and our free will right here? We got into this a little bit in the Ezra and Nehemiah series. Remember, one of the key phrases in the book of Ezra was "the hand of God was with me." So we talked a little bit about the sovereignty and how we make choices and how we balance things out. So I don't know. Do you want me to try to go first, babe, or you want to?
Whatever.
So I don't know how geeky we want to go here, but there's different views on free will and how that plays out. But so maybe I'll say it this way: some people there's a debate, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave, between what theologians call libertarian free will versus compatibilistic free will. And on the compatibilistic side, which is more of a reform perspective, we do have free will in the sense that we could choose anything, but there is a sense that God is also working and directing and moving our hearts in a way that he knows what we're going to choose, and he is actively involved in that. Whereas the libertarian side would say more, well, not that they would deny God's sovereignty, but that we could actually choose to go in a bunch of different directions, and God's not involved quite as much as on the compatibilistic side. Am I simplifying that too much? It's been a while since I read on that one.
No, those are a couple categories. So there's a large spectrum. Then there's some positions even to the side of compatibilism on determinism or hard determinism that really says we have zero role to play in our outcomes of the future. So there's sort of different positions. On the one side, there's like free will, autonomy, libertarianism, and then on the other side, determinism, and then there's a couple positions in the middle. One of them is soft determinism, and then what you mentioned is compatibilism.
Right.
I fall on the compatibilistic side. What that means is I'm free to choose, you're free to choose, but we're only as free to choose as our hearts desire. So we're free to choose what we most want. And that's where God's work is done, on the heart level. And God works inside of our desires in order to, Philippians chapter 2 says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who's at work within you, both to will and to do according to his good pleasure. So we see both our works that are at play and then God's work that's at play at the same time. So that's called compatibilism. I am reading a book. I forgot to mention this, but this is a book that I'm reading this year with a friend who's wrestling with this.
Wait, are you recommending another?
Sorry, I'm going to sneak one in. So
I mean, I can recommend another one too?
Well, I guess it's only fair. So it's called 4 Views on Divine Providence. This is one of those Zonder counterpoints books. And it's really interesting. My friend is really wrestling with this, so we're just reading it together. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the scriptures do teach that God is sovereign. I don't think we want to let go of that doctrine, but our choices matter. So I'll give an illustration from the Bible that I like to give about this question that kind of illustrates how both work. So in Acts chapter 27, there's a shipwreck. Paul's on a ship, and he gets a prophetic word about how nobody on this ship is going to die. And he comforts everybody in the storm that God's going to preserve all of the passengers. So this is what he's told by God. And then the very next thing he does in that chapter is he tells those that are in charge of the ship that they better go ahead and take care of XYZ protocol. And if they don't, they're going to drown. And so it's like, well, Paul, wait a minute. You just said God told you that everybody on the ship is going to be preserved and we should calm down. But then you're also telling us, the leadership on this ship, that if we don't take these precautions, then we're not going to make it. And the truth is, it's both of those things. And so God gives a promise, and then the human responsibility there are actually the means by which God is going to bring about his promise coming to pass. So this brings me back to what you said earlier when you were doing your rundown, that you're making these predictions about 2024. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we just sit back on our couches and wait for them to happen. We can be the means by which these predictions come true. We can build these institutions. We can support family structure. We can hold intentional discipleship ministries at Millington in order to bring these truths to pass.
Amen.
So it's both of those things at the same time. That's compatibilism.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is that we only see what we do. Like, we don't see the God side of how God's working behind the scenes. So there still is a call for us to engage in action and trust that God's gonna use that. I was thinking another illustration along with your. I like the way you described about our desires, and I forget exactly how you worded it, but the description about the God moves on our desires. One of the illustrations I remember reading in Millard Erickson's Christian Theology, he used the illustration of liver. I don't know if you ever read this or heard this, but basically, if somebody puts liver in front of you to eat, you have the free will to do that. You could choose to eat it. You could choose to not eat it. But if your desire is not for that, you're not going to eat it because you don't want it. Right. And that's kind of how you were describing how God's working in our hearts, to will and act in our desires. So we have the free will to say yes or no, but in reality, because of our proclivities, we're going to say yes or no to certain things.
Right. And then the contrarian would say, no, wait a minute, I can choose to make some sort of health-conscious decision to eat food that I actually don't enjoy with my taste buds. But be careful about that, because there's a desire you have deep underneath of that to make healthy choices and to get in shape. So you're still, even though you may eat something you may not necessarily enjoy the taste of, you're still acting in accordance with your deepest desire. So our will,
in how God has made you and how God's wired you, right?
Yeah. So our will is always subject to that which we most love or that which we most desire. Mm-hmm. This is why the gospel is so powerful, because God has given us new desires. Our new heart has been implanted inside of us. This is what Thomas Chalmers calls the expulsive power of a new affection, that Christ now is seen as beautiful, and we want him more than we wanted our sin, which now we're repulsed by. So that's the power of the new heart. That's conversion. That's regeneration. That's the gospel. That's what we're all about.
There you go. Well, hopefully that answered your question right there.
I think we got an amen from Tim there. So that was
Tim. Tim was
I got fired up.
Tim, if somebody put liver in front of you, would you eat it or would you run away?
How about liverwurst?
I'm a big advocate of trying things before.
I forgot about that.
I would try it, and then we'd go from there. I've never had it.
Okay.
But I'm a big advocate of the
wiring that God has put in you is to try new things.
You should try something, and then if you don't like it, then
Some of you out there saying, I would never eat liver at all. Hey, that's God. All right. Well, that's the question.
Listen to the voice of God.
Let's move back to the sermon here. So, what did you think? Ken brought it. Yes, Ken was a trooper preaching. Had a little bit of a sore throat, and yet he was up there. Involving the kids, he was throwing out Reese's peanut butter cups.
And
yesterday.
I missed that.
You missed it. I told him in between services about my favorite candy, and I didn't get any. But
what was that? Kit Kats?
I said Kit. There's others like I also like Linden. The Linden, the little balls. You get those are pretty good too. But I guess if I had to be pushed, I would choose Kit
Another
Kats.
Bougie choice from Bob. He's got his AirPods and he's got his Linden chocolates. Man, you got to be very choosy.
Or
with Bob.
Ghirardelli.
Oh man.
Okay, so Ken had three movements. We talked about the voice of one crying. So we talked about
John the Baptist coming on the scene, bringing the fire. Mm-hmm. He's calling them vipers and stuff. I was watching Ken's sermon, and he had a picture of a brood on the screen there that looked like John the Baptist is pretty confrontational right out of the gate here. Man,
he's a snake handler.
Oh my word. He's calling them on the carpet already. So it seems like we were developing some enemies right here in the beginning of the Gospel of Luke.
Yeah. But you know what? His road sign there was evangelism, and the applicational call was to be prophetic, I think, in our daily lives and in our world. Bringing out the gospel, speaking that. So that was a good application for Ken.
Number two, want to be a road sign.
That's right.
Yeah.
Number two was the arrival of one coming. So then we got into the baptism of Jesus, the genealogy of Jesus, and I loved that that slide he had for the genealogy. Although you said you were a little confused because you only got a couple seconds.
I needed more time with it. I was an online viewer, so
maybe we should talk to our production people about leaving the slide up there.
Well, when it's like that, it's like, whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah. So
I'll work on it.
But it was so interesting to me see how the line came from and eventually led to Christ. It was kind of a cool picture.
Yeah.
Right. That.
Yeah, so the arrival of one coming, Jesus is baptized. We see the Father pronouncing his blessing upon his Son there in the waters of the Jordan River. Very significant event, very significant location in the land of Israel, that here we go.
Yeah.
We're going down to the Jordan, kind of reminds us of Joshua. The children are entering the land. The Son of God is here. He's going to do the work. He's going to expel the enemies of God, and the Messiah is on the move. So the arrival of one coming.
Boom. And then lastly, our God is a saving God, and we got into the temptation of Jesus right there. Another great picture Ken pulled up was he had that picture of the Temple Mount and showed us like where they think that Jesus would have been tempted,
like the
to
tall
jump
spot.
off.
Yeah.
This really tall spot. That was a pretty powerful image, I think. He also had kids jumping off the stage, so
He did?
I'm glad. Yeah, oh, you missed that? Yeah,
I didn't
hey, how
see
about you
that
jump
part.
off here? We had like 3 kids jumping off the stage.
Oh. I don't know.
And then he asked them, if you went up to the roof, would you go and jump off?
I heard him ask
and
that.
And the kids were like, maybe. The kids said, maybe. I'll jump off the roof of the church.
We have some risk takers, some adventuresome children in our
Yeah.
midst. So he tied all of those 3 temptations together in a cohesive way, right? He said that the enemy was trying to essentially prevent the need for the Messiah to suffer, and Christ.
That was a really good point in the sermon.
Christ obviously set his face like flint towards Jerusalem, which he will continue to do in the Gospel of Luke, and is willing and ready to enter into the time of passion, which is where the Gospel of Luke is headed. So,
And that's maybe another exhortation for 2024 and beyond, is that sometimes people make the goal of their lives to be, how can I not suffer? Like some people think that's the goal of the Christian life. But in reality, suffering is, the Bible expects suffering for our faith, and we live in a fallen world. How do you trust God in the midst of that? And I think that was part of what he was trying to get at.
yeah.
In his applicational point.
Shout out to the Fresh Wave podcast. If you haven't seen Drinking from the Cup episode, what's it called, Tim? Is that the name of it?
Drinking from the cup.
You need to check out that meditation on suffering from our dear friend Corey Dietrich, and it's a great word about how we should expect these kinds of adversities.
It's funny
in
that you
our
say
lives.
that. I think I kind of have to say now. The previous question that was answered was asked by Corey.
Oh,
Yeah.
So-
Hey, what's up, Corey? We're giving you a shout out here. Thanks for joining us on that, and also the special Fresh Wave live broadcast that happened at the end of December too. That was fun.
that's right.
So good stuff. Ken.
I hear in 2024 we might have a Fresh Wave and Behind the Pulpit crossover episode.
There are two of the hosts.
That's going to be like Star Trek and Star Wars meeting
Maybe.
together in the same.
there's a
We'll have to
host
have a lightsaber
from each of
battle.
the shows who are related, so it would be pretty great.
That's right.
Very good.
Spiritual warfare. There we go.
I'm gonna have to go up and check on Pastor Bob in his office in case he's just up there playing with his lightsaber instead of working today.
It's the missing piece of the armor of God. It's the
Amanda, can
lightsaber
you
of the
come get
Lord.
these?
See,
'Cause
this
these are
was-
going to be a real distraction.
This was the
for
sword
my
of the
friend.
Spirit that was missing this summer.
The
We'll have to
saber
bring
of
it
the
back.
Spirit.
Saber of the Spirit. There you go.
Yes, awesome, very good. You know what? You needed this on your Revelation 12 Christmas Eve meditation, man. This
I
would have
should
been
have.
perfect for that.
Slaying the dragon.
Yes.
Well, you know, maybe I should have gotten an early Christmas present, not one actually on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So,
Well.
anyway. All right, what else? Anything else about Ken's sermon?
No, it's a great message. It's a lot to cover. Dive into the Gospel of Luke with us, please. Read these sections. Go back, read over chapter 3 again. Next week, we're going to be moving in to the end of chapter 4 as Jesus announces his public ministry in a very
That's
overt
right. This
way.
is the Isaiah passage. He comes into the temple, unrolls the scroll. That's a great. I love that passage.
To his own synagogue, not the temple, in Nazareth,
Yeah.
and reads the passage for the day and announces that he is the anointed that has been expected. So we're looking forward to continuing on our study. Luke chapter 4. It's going to be a great passage for this week.
We might not cover everything in every passage, so it's important that you actually go through and read along with us.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, are we done? What else we have here?
Bob. No, we're not done.
Didn't we just answer a theology
we're
question?
not done.
No, that was an audience question. There's
It's
a
It's
time
a theological question
for the official Jedi sword battle, man. That's what we're missing today, man. We didn't really fully.
Theology Sprint. All right, so what color should we choose for the Theology Sprint? Orange, green.
Blue is my favorite color. What does that mean? from a
Blue
Jedi
is,
perspective,
I have to find the article. that
Usually
told
means
you.
you're a good guy.
am I still an apprentice?
Well, it's somehow.
Oh my goodness, these are so fun.
See, you're gonna come up to the office and we're like, "Hey, let's do a lightsaber duel."
Yeah, you're not getting this back. Sorry, man. It's too late. All right, Tim. What are we sprinting?
Right, what's the
toward?
question here?
Is there like a?
Do you just that light?
A
I just
goal
felt like
here?
we just went into like a different dimension right there.
We are sprinting out of the book of Luke from chapter 3.
Oh wow.
All right.
The question is,
Too bad Ken isn't here. We could have Ken answer that.
John the Baptist warns that every tree, in Luke 3, verse 9, John the Baptist warns that every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. How does this metaphor reconcile with God's unconditional love and mercy as seen elsewhere in the Gospels?
Oh,
Given that one a thought in a while.
I mean, it's a very good question.
I can give it a shot. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Padawan will be listening over here intently.
Well, I think the what he's getting at there is that every tree that's not bearing good fruit is somebody like Jesus tells us you will know them by the fruit that they bear. So if you're not bearing fruit, there's a question that we should be asking ourselves: Are you really a follower of Jesus? God has unconditional love for us, but also not everybody is saved. So the reality is, if you're saved, if you know Christ, if you're following Him, there's going to be fruit that's seen in your life. And if you're not a Christian, the Bible also tells us that you are an enemy of God. So fruit is evidence of the fact that there's a change within your heart and you have given your life to Christ.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like God's love is unconditional towards the sinner in the sense that our works do not merit us any standing before God, and His election is unconditional. But after we are saved, He who has begun a good work in you will carry it on to completion, that the seed of the gospel has been planted in your heart, and it will in fact bear fruit. There is no such thing as the person who's been truly regenerated by God that has zero evidence of that regeneration in their lives. You will bear fruit. This is God's work in you. Ephesians 2:10 says we are God's workmanship, and we are created for good works that God has prepared in advance for us to do. So if we truly are recipients of God's unconditional love, it's not that our works are now meriting us standing with Him, but our works are a testimony to the fact that God has bestowed His love upon us, and the things that we used to hate, we now love, and the things we used to love, we now hate. And our work of sanctification is ongoing and progressive, but there will be fruit and evidence of the Spirit's work along the way.
Good. That's a good expansion of that. Yeah.
Fair enough, Tim? Is that
Very fair. Once again, thank you for sprinting and answering the question, even though Bob tries to get out of it sometimes.
What?
the context there was he was talking about the Pharisees who were very concerned about externals. So I just want to take this as a sort of a rebuke against people like me and the clergy that would be overly focused on appearance or what might be seen to others as external righteousness. That's not what God is looking for. He's looking for real heart change, real fruit in my life with those that I love, that I'm...
Not false fruit, but true fruit.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Pharisees looked pretty good externally on the outside, but John the Baptist came after them and said, no, actually on the inside...
Is it fair, like Paul also talks about godly sorrow versus worldly sorrow, like sorrow that really produces deep heart change and produces fruit.
Yeah.
Makes a distinction there.
Yeah. We hope this is a fruit-bearing 2024. So...
Hey, I'll make a prediction. It is going to be a fruitful year. Lots of fruit. It's going to be a fruity year.
I like it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the first episode of 2024 on Behind the Pulpit. We'll be back here every week. We hope to see you again next week. And, of course, may the Holy Spirit be with you.
Amen. All right. God bless you guys.